Pastor Jackie Williams is not with us today. He's out of town, and so you get me as the pinch hitter. And it's sure good to be with you and to share in this week's midweek reflection. You know, what we do is we refer to what we haven't covered in the sermon. So this we could call is the rest of the story. Now, I didn't preach on Sunday because of the bad weather, so I've got all kind of stuff to share, but I'm just going to give you a small part as we follow along. So I wanted to read the passage of Scripture from chapter 22 of Matthew, beginning in verse 34. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." In so doing, Jesus was actually quoting the Old Testament law himself. He was quoting from Deuteronomy and also from Leviticus. And so from both of those, he draws these greatest commandments. The actual Hebrew one in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy, it says, "You shall love the Lord with all your heart, your soul, and your strength." It was a way of saying, bring it all. Then Jesus quotes the one that was done by the Greek translation of the New Testament of his day, and he does, "Love the Lord with all your heart, your soul, and your mind." What I'd like to do for this reflection is actually bring those together. So loving the Lord with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And I want to take them in reverse order. So how's that for making things just a little bit complicated? And let's see if I can do it in reverse. So love the Lord with all your strength. First of all, we need to say, here we're talking about loving ourselves. That's what love your neighbor as yourself. And today, this week's theme was about loving yourself. The Bible actually talks very little about loving yourself. It just assumes it. And so when we start to talk about what love is both high regard and action on behalf of someone else. So we love the Lord. It means we have high regard and we act on behalf of God. Love your neighbor. It means we have high regard for our neighbor. We never trust people we never treat people like they don't matter, which seems to be an art form in our own day and time. And then we love our neighbor and we give them high regard, and also we act on their behalf. So when we're talking about love ourselves, then I would want to talk about how do we have both high regard and act in a way that is loving toward ourselves. And it's really kind of about self-care. So how do we take care of ourselves so that we have stuff in the tank to love our neighbors for the love of God? So physically, how do we take care of ourselves? We live in a day and time when everything is so idealized physically. We have everything is airbrushed on TV and online. And then I saw a thing this past week where now with AI, Rich and Carl are here with me in this. And so Rich and Carl, I'm telling you, you guys can do this. You can go on AI and you can take a picture of yourself and say, add 15 pounds of lean muscle, just like that. And you could say, reduce 10% fat. And that can be the next picture you put on Instagram and on Facebook. Isn't that crazy? That literally something that is unachievable can be the picture we can put out there for ourselves, and it becomes the standard in the same way that other things have become the standard when it's not the real thing. So what we need to do is we need to eat right. We need to do things that we do the right exercise, but we do it so that we will have the capacity to love God and love our neighbor. And it's all for the love of God, so that we care for ourselves physically, but we don't feed in to the craziness that's around the body worship of our day. Then we love the Lord your God with all your mind. I had a seminary professor who was in the history of Christianity, and he says, never forget that you are told to love the Lord your God with your mind. He was from Germany. And so Klaus Penzel would say that, and it reminds me that we need to take care of our minds as well. What are you reading? What are you online with? How much of your time is actually zombie time, where you're just kind of inanely... It's okay to play games, but what if it's taking an extraordinary amount of your time? I have ones that are a special draw to me. Word games and number games, man, I could do that forever, and hours can go by. And so I have to know, if I give myself that luxury, I eliminate the app right after I'm done with it, because it'll just keep begging me. How do we nurture our minds? And how do we build our thinking? One of the things we're watching now in this day and time, people are not reading like they used to. They are not listening to people with different opinions and stuff. And so their minds are not growing in the same way. And in fact, the more we are kind of online, the actual synapses of our brain are being wired differently. So we need to actually intentionally build the capacity of our minds so that we can love our neighbor for the love of God. And so then you shall love the Lord your God with all your soul. So how do we take care of our souls? We are living in a day and time when people are losing their sense of soul. I can show you in athletics. It's now about the money, even at the collegiate level. And so it's about all of the transfers that can happen on the portal so that you can have 1 year's championship. The developing of a team for the long haul, or the developing of players for the long haul, not so much. For me, that kind of means college sports is selling its soul. You don't have to agree with that. But the truth is, we have the selling of our souls in lots of places. And so we kind of go with what goes with the bottom line, or we go with what will get the applause. And so we kind of go with what will please the most people, what's the most popular, but we don't go for what's right and what does the long haul good and what is healthy, especially in our relationship with God. If we're going to love the Lord with all our souls, then we also have to nurture our capacity of soul. But that then affects how we treat our neighbor from a position of soul, of valuing, of core values about who we are, and not just using them for our own expediency. And so we have to take care of our souls. And I'm not sure we're taking the time to do that. That's what prayer is about. That's what Bible study is about. But it's also examining ourselves. The ancients used to have what they call an examination of conscience, that they regularly did so they could see, is my soul really lining up with what I'm doing and what I'm saying? And that leaves us with the other one. How do you take care of your heart? So I'm reading a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And the writer says that most people are not giving themselves the room or the time to develop themselves emotionally. And in fact, and here I'm talking especially to guys, we are particularly this way. We hide from our feelings and we do not connect them with our faith so well. So what we can do, and none of you are like me this way, but the truth is I tend to send people mixed messages. I'll have a smile on my face, but my eyes betray something different. Or I might be on a slow anger burning fuse, but I'm not saying anything. Not like, that's just me. I know that's not you. But that's one of the ways, because I know I can't let my feelings get to me. But Guess what? God already knows your feelings, knows you better than you know yourself. So I took an exam in that book on how healthy I was spirituality, and they put you in either as an emotional infant, an emotional child, emotional adolescent, or an emotional adult. Oh, how I wanted to be an emotional adult. But lo and behold, I was an emotional adolescent. And I shared those results with Tina, my wife, and she says, yep. There was no argument with that. The truth is, I have a whole arena in my life to develop in relationship with God that is about how do I take care of myself emotionally and build my relationship with God emotionally so that I can better love my neighbor for the love of God. You shall take care of yourself, your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. It allows you then to love your neighbor for the love of God. How's that happening for you? What do you need to work on with God so that you have the capacity to actually love in the name of God? It's been good to share with you today.